Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call the June 16th, 2020 regular school board meeting to order. The first item is to accept the agenda. Madam Superintendent, are there any revisions to the agenda as printed?
We do have revisions. Item C8, approval of the June 4th, 2020 Superintendent Search Work Session Minutes, add item. Item C21, Florida School Book Depository, add item, revised. Item C29, recommendation for administrative and instructional personnel actions, revised item. Item C30, new 2020 MSAP grant schools and program, move item to regular agenda. Public hearing 2020/2021 Code of Conduct, removed. Public hearing adoption of Shelley Boone Middle School zoning, removed. Quick claim deed for 1919 school building in Lake Wells, removed. This concludes the revisions for this evening.
Okay, board members, what's the pleasure of the board? I need a motion, Mr. Wilson, a second, Ms. Fields. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the agenda with the revisions as noted, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Now I would like to ask board member Lynn Wilson to give our invocation today. Please stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Let's pray, please. God in heaven, again, we come to you with thankfulness in our hearts for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. We are thankful for the opportunity to meet here this afternoon, and we are mindful of the tremendous responsibilities that we bear as school board members as we conduct our discussions and execute our decisions. We're ever mindful of the many challenges and difficulties that we face in our world and our country today. We pray your guiding hand on our scientists as they work to find a vaccine for COVID-19. We pray your guiding hand on our leaders as they work with the members of our communities to find peaceful and productive pathways forward for our country. We are grateful for Superintendent Byrd. We're so very thankful for her leadership in so many ways. We're thankful for her wisdom, her strength, her courage. We're thankful for her calm demeanor in leading our school district. We pray that you will bless her and continue to grant her strength and courage and wisdom as she leads our school district in ensuring that every single child has a better and brighter future. We pray that your guiding hand will be on this meeting this evening, that you would guide our discussions and our decisions, that they be appropriate and correct for our school district. We offer this prayer on behalf of the school district, and I offer this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And now I would like to ask board member Billy Townsend to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you, Mr. Townsend. The next item is public comments on agenda items. Mrs. Worthington, is there anyone that has submitted comments regarding an item on the regular agenda?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item, board members, is to approve 5 sets of minutes. The first set of minutes is for the May 12th, 2020 school board meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the May 12th, 2020 school board meeting minutes as printed. Do I have a motion? Mr. Wilson, and a second, Ms. Fields. Is there any discussion? Ms. Fortney?
No discussion. I was trying to make the motion. I'll just leave the microphone on.
Okay. All right, seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The second set of minutes is for the May 12th, 2020 work session. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the May 12th, 2020 work session minutes as printed. Let me have a raise of hands. Ms. Reynolds is the motion. Mr. Wilson is the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. The third set of minutes is for the May 26, 2020 special school board meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the May 26, 2020 special school board meeting minutes as printed. I need a motion. Ms. Fields, I need a second. Ms. Miller, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The fourth set of minutes is for the May 28th, 2020 special school board meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the May 28th, 2020 special school board meeting minutes as printed. I need a motion and a second.
Second.
Mr. Townsend gave the motion and Ms. Reynolds seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor then, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The fifth set of minutes is for the June 4th, 2020 special work session on the superintendent search. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the June 4th, 2020 special work session minutes as printed. Do I have a motion? Ms. Reynolds and a second? Mr.
Second.
Townsend? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. The next area is our approval of the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the June 16th, 2020 consent agenda as printed. Do I have a motion? Ms. Fields? And a second, Mr. Wilson? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Next, we have our new administrator announcements. Mrs. Byrd, would you please introduce our new administrators today?
I would love to. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to introduce and recommend on my behalf Cynthia Downing, Principal of Summerlin Academy. Ms. Downing was the acting principal at Summerlin Academy last year, and I'm pleased to make the recommendation for her as now the principal of Summerlin Academy. I would also like to make the recommendation and appoint Kevin Levine as the principal of Harrison School of the Arts. Mr. Levine served as acting principal of Harrison School of the Arts since December of 2019. I am pleased to make the recommendation of Ashley Minitry as assistant principal of Polk City Elementary. She served as the acting assistant principal of Polk City Elementary since August of 2019. And finally, I would like to make the recommendation, next I would like to make the recommendation of the appointment of Matthew Diaz as the assistant principal of Lake Gibson High School. Mr. Diaz previously was the assistant principal too at Lake Gibson High School since July 1, 2018. And now finally, I'm pleased to make the recommendation of the appointment of Ashley Hiley as assistant principal of Davenport Elementary. Ms. Hiley was previously the district-based coach district-wide since July 1st of 2018. This concludes our new administrators for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Byrd, and congratulations to all these wonderful administrators. We appreciate you and look forward to seeing you in your schools when we hopefully reopen in the fall. The next item, board members, is our regular agenda. The first item under Administration School Board is item number 50, FSBA Advocacy Committee. And the Florida School Boards Association requests that participating school boards provide a representative and an alternate to the FSBA Advocacy Committee, which is a 2-year term from July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2022. Today in our work session, we discussed this, and the following folks were nominated to be voted on today. The chair will entertain a motion to approve Sarah Beth Reynolds and Lisa Miller as the school board representative and the alternate, respectively, on the FSBA Advocacy Committee. Do I have a motion? Mr. Wilson, and a second, Mrs. Fields. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The next item under Facilities and Operations, General Items, Property Management, Land, is item number 51, George Jenkins Ground Lease Agreement. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the approval of a partial termination of the ground lease agreements. Do I have a motion? Ms. Reynolds, and a second, Ms. Fields. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The next item under Learning General Items is item number 53, the new 2020 MSAP grant, schools and programs. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the new 2020 MSAP grant application for $15 million. Do I have a motion? Ms. Fields, in a second. Mr. Townsend. Is there any discussion? Ms. Miller?
Thank you. As much as I would like to support this and believe that I need to give this opportunity to the code students and families, after the long deliberation that we had earlier and much longer discussion, I'm not able to support this today. I would like to see these ideas brought to us well in advance so we can talk about things. We do not have the infrastructure in place at least one of these schools to have this successful program. And so I am not supporting this today, but I would like to see us take a look at the processes of these items. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Mr. Townsend?
Yeah, everybody who's interested in this should watch the discussion from the work session this morning. I share a lot of Ms. Miller's concerns. What we're voting for today is to allow the grant application to move forward. I'm okay with that. I can tell you it will be very, very hard for me to support this, given the reality of the school level leadership at Tenor Rock, which I discussed this morning in some detail. This is a potentially, this type of investment in kids that have been historically underserved is really important. We need to do it, but we also need to do it thoughtfully and make sure we're putting everyone in a position to succeed. So I want to see some additional thought on how this competitive grant will be implemented successfully, and hope that we'll use the interim time to really work on that. And the public as a whole, there's no guarantee we get this grant at all. It's a competitive grant, so I think it's appropriate to let it move forward with a lot of caveats for acceptance if it comes to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ms. Fortney?
Yes, thank you. I just urge everybody to watch the discussion on the work session. There was a lot of layers to that, and questions, and I would hope that people do tune in and watch that work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Townsend alluded a little bit to what I was going to say, but just a reminder that we're voting to support the grant, not necessarily the programs. This is just to be able to submit the application to bring in $15 million to Polk County to spend on our students. So I will happily support it. And I'm thrilled that we're looking at bringing Cambridge to other high schools because it's been incredibly successful at Winter Haven, not only as an attractor for the school, but in moving our students forward and giving them more opportunities. So I am thrilled to be supporting this afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Miller?
Just have a quick question. How I understand grants is how they're written is how the money would have to be spent. So we're supporting the grant to fund these programs at these schools as described, different than just bringing in money. So I think the work session had a lot of information. So I look forward to continuing the conversation on our processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And I too want to just reiterate the purpose of the board vote today is to move forward with the application because it is a competitive grant. We may or may not be selected for that $15 million. So I am supporting and will be supporting this to move forward with the application. And if we are blessed and do receive the money at that time, we're hoping that staff will come forward with the specifics and the details that were discussed in the work session today. Any further discussion? If none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hands. Since we have so many.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, like sign. So the motion carries 6-1. The next item under learning support general items, item number 54, is the IDEA Part B Federal Entitlement and Pre-K Grant for 2020-2021. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, Federal Continuation Grant for children ages 3 through 21. Do I have a motion? Ms. Fields, and a second. Ms. Reynolds, any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Nay. Motion carries unanimously. Next, it is time for our public hearing. I would like to recess the school board meeting and open up the public hearing. At this time, I would like to call the public hearing for June 16th, 2020 to order. Under this, we have item 55, policy updates. Mrs. Worthington, is there anyone that has submitted comments regarding item 55 for the public hearing today?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the final staff and Neola recommended policy updates. Do I have a motion? Ms. Fields, and a second. Ms. Reynolds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. At this time, I would like to close the public hearing and reconvene the school board meeting. Next, we come to our superintendent's report. Mrs. Bird, do you have an update for us today?
I do. Thank you so much. First, I'd like to start with the next work session will be held July 28th, 2020 at 12:30 p.m. in the superintendent's large conference room, followed by the school board meeting at 5 p.m. in the auditorium located at 1915 South Floor Avenue in Bartow. I also would like to say congratulations to all of our seniors this year. It has been wonderful to join each of you on the field as you cross home plate to receive your diplomas and take your picture, and more importantly, have the final walk, culminating all of your years of experience here in Polk County School System or in the public education sector. You know, life throws you many curveballs is what you do when you pick up the ball. And to see the graduates come across the field, nearly all the schools have had just about all of their students show up. It's been hot, it's been raining, but guess what? We weathered the storms and we stood in the sun, and so did they and their families. And again, I want to say thank you to each of them, and thank you to our partners in the community that made this possible. I also want to give a special congratulations and thanks to one of our former students, Jared Fassett. Jared sent me an invitation to join him at his graduation from West Point. He has graduated as a second lieutenant. Unfortunately, I was not able to join him. And then they did not have the graduation in person due to the COVID-19. But he made sure his mom came by and we had a chat before his graduation that was virtual. So, you know, when you look back and now students reach back out to us to say thank you. So I want to congratulate Jared and his family once again from a graduation of the second lieutenant from West Point this weekend. So congratulations to Jared. And lastly, many of you know I put out my message, a statement last week, but we also are taking it a little bit further with some of our partners here in education and looking at our Teacher of the Year and some of our staff. So we've had a video that we are working on, and we're going to continue this work with our diversity and equality department. Our Teacher of the Year has committed himself and other staff to making sure that we let everyone know in Polk County school system, everyone is accepted and we do not condemn racism. So I would like to have the video played at this time. I think Judd's up there. I am here at Rochelle School of the Arts, one of our district's formerly all-Black schools. The past several weeks have been a time of upheaval and heartbreak for our nation. Every day, senseless acts of injustice and harassment are being committed against people of color. This is a time of deep division and hurt, and even if we have experienced these recent events through our phones, our television screens, we all feel the pain, agony, and unrest. During this time, I have asked myself, what can we do, and where do we go from here? We cannot merely hope for change. We must use the power of education to open minds and hearts. That is why I am dedicating my staff to place a new emphasis on recording and teaching local Black history. We'll tell the stories of places like Rochelle, because the more our young people know about racial injustice, the better equipped they will be to prevent it from happening in the future.
At Polk County Public Schools, we condemn racism. We are committed to creating learning and working environments that celebrate all ethnicities, races, colors, and origins. Stereotyping, biases, and prejudice cannot live within our school district. We strive to ensure all students and employees are treated equally and with the dignity and respect that all humans deserve. We promote togetherness and peace, but we can do more, and we will through education.
My hope for change lies where it always has, in the education of our children. At Polk County Public Schools, our mission is simple: to deliver high-quality education to every child. But what is education? It is more than subtracting and dividing, punctuation and theorizing. A truly educated individual is open-minded, self-critical, empathetic, and capable of finding the common grounds with others. Martin Luther King puts it best: intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. To truly educate our children, we must also teach about the issues of racial injustice and why it is wrong. We must open their minds to the atrocities of the past and equip them with the knowledge they need to change the future.
This summer, staff from our Office of Public Relations and Strategic Partnerships, Equity and Diversity Management, and Teaching and Learning, and students from throughout the district will study local Black history and conduct research and interviews with members of our local Black community. We'll capture their stories of whites-only lunch counters, of segregated schools, of the wounds racism and segregation have inflicted on souls, and efforts to move our community forward.
These stories deserve to be told, and we will use them to help new generations of students understand the effects of racial injustice right here in Polk County. The videos we produce through this project will be made available to our social studies teachers for use in their classroom. We will also make them available on our website for parents to use in talking to their children about racial injustice.
Parents are their child's first teacher. Parents, we encourage you to have courageous conversations with your child at home, as we will continue to do so among the staff within our district. Talk to them about racism and discrimination. Help them understand how their peers and people of color may feel, and think of ways that they can help build a more inclusive community. You'll find helpful resources online at polkschoolsfl.com/equity to help you with these critical conversations. Additionally, Polk County Public Schools is expanding its existing diversity and sensitivity training so that our employees can better support and model positive, inclusive behaviors.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream that his 4 children would one day live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. We can make that dream come true.
Teach me. Talk to me. Help me to understand.
Prepare me to change the world.
We can make Dr. King's dream come true, and we can do it one mind, one heart, one child at a time through the power of education. Madam Chair, that concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I hear everybody in the room here applauding. So what a wonderful video that our staff and superintendent have put together. It is truly a time in the history of, I think, our school district and our nation where we do need to come together and to heal each other's hearts. And I'm really excited for this new program that we're going to be doing. And I want to say thank you to those that took the time and effort to create the video and to work on the programs in our schools so that all of our children can grow up and learn how to be tolerant and loving and kind and gentler to each other. So thank you, Madam Superintendent. I really appreciate that. That was a great video. Next, we have our attorney's report, which will be given by Mr. Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First item is to request approval of the extension of School Board Resolution 2019-2020-12, Emergency Authority of the Superintendent.
Thank you so much. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the extension of the School Board Resolution 2019-2020-12. Do I have a motion? Mr. Wilson, and a second? Mr. Townsend? Any discussion? Seeing none? Oh, Ms. Reynolds, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll be voting against this tonight because I believe that we're getting very regular updates in our both communication directly with the superintendent and via email. And as the task force is working, I know we'll be getting reports weekly on how that, on what they're working on. So I don't think we need to continue having the bi-weekly meetings specifically for COVID.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Miller?
I just have a quick question, and Madam Chair, you can tell me if this is the right time. There's a couple of questions that we had on the update. Is that coming up later on the update of what schools will look like, what they look like over the summer, what's happening? Are we having that discussion today?
I don't believe Ms. Bird was planning on that, correct? No.
Do you want me to send direct emails that I have
Sure.
for questions to her? Or
That
to,
would be
okay,
great.
I'll send them to everyone. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. If you could send it directly to the superintendent, and then when they do the answers, they'll carbon copy all of us on it, so we all have that information.
I just know that the Bay News 9 and other news sources have released how we will be going back to school, and I don't know that that's been decided. So we might want to make it known to the public that that's still not confirmed. And we're still working on the committee to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Ms. Bird, do you want to comment there, please?
Thank you, Ms. Ms. Miller, you're absolutely correct. I don't know where they got that because we have not decided. The committee has just convened and they've added additional staff and they're still really working through some of the models. Like I said, we had 3 that we were looking on. We have not come up with one, as I'm letting the committee work through those as well. So no, we have not decided. You're correct about that.
Thank you, Ms. Miller and Ms. Superintendent. And we have Ms. Fields.
I will not be supporting this motion. We've already had discussion as the reason why. So I think we already did this back in April, and I'm not understanding, and I don't really need to have an understanding right now, but I'm just not going to be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Mr. Townsend?
The reason we're having this vote, and we've had it regularly, is if you look at the title of the resolution, it's a resolution of the School Board of Polk County regarding the temporary suspension of school board policies during certain emergencies impacting the health, safety, and well-being of students, employees, volunteers, and the community. And then you go down, you read the resolution. It's a pretty broad surrendering of authority, and I think it's important to remind the public that we take that surrendering seriously and are going to revisit it on a regular basis. It's not an insult of anyone. It's just being responsible in the role. Secondly, though, I'm a little confused about Ms. Reynolds' point. So we are going to be continuing to meet twice a month, generally, right? Right? That isn't that what everybody decided? Isn't that what we decided?
My understanding is that was part of that resolution, was the additional meeting per month. And normally we do have 2 work sessions a month, other than I think March when we have spring break, December when Christmas is normally the second meeting. But yes.
Well, anyway, I think it got conflated. Yeah, the vote is about the grant of authority. The meetings, you know, are related. My original intent was just to have an update meeting regularly, and then the board as a whole, I thought, decided to have regular meetings twice a month. So anyway, this has been a little confusing. I'm going to vote yes. So should we talk a little bit about the committee now, or should we wait till like board comments? Because I have some questions about how the authority flows in that and what the actual role is, et cetera.
I think I'd like to request that you wait till the end if you would, so we can get through
okay,
these.
that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor of School Board Resolution 2019-2020-12, please signify with your hands up so I can read the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And Ms. Fortney, is your hand up or down? Hers is up. Okay. All right. And then all those opposed, nay, with your hands up. Okay. So the motion carries 5-2. Okay, Mr. Bridges, item 59.
Madam Chair, I have a request to advertise 5 public hearings, 4 at the 28th board meeting, 1 at the August 25th. I'll read them all and just call for a single vote if you would, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
We'll have the policy changes that Ms. Dodge brought this morning.
Sure.
And the code of conduct, the second reading of the Shelley Boone and Lake Marion Middle School zone adjustment, and the tentative budget hearing on July 28th. And then on August 25th, we'll have a public hearing to approve the contract with Mia Escuela Montessori Charter School.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. The chair will entertain a motion to grant authority to advertise the public hearings as noted by Mr. Bridges. Do I have a motion? Ms. Fields, and a second? Ms. Reynolds, any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you,
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Bridges.
That's all I have.
Next item on our agenda is the auditor's report. However, I don't believe we have one from Ms. Matthews today.
No report today. Thank you.
All right, dear. Thanks so much. I didn't realize you were there.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, next we do come to our board member reports. Let's start with Mr. Townsend, District 1.
Okay, great. Thanks. Just wanted to do a little cleanup real quick on something. I in the consent agenda, we approved the two contracts with the external operators. I probably should have pulled that out and had a vote on it. But I think you convinced me. I would have voted for them anyway. There's enough support there that I'm willing to go along with it. Again, my concern with this is not at the staff or local level. I think we've done the best we can with it. It's so the overall. I mean, we have to remember the state of Florida for 25 years has had the worst test score growth in America, both on the NAEP, both on our own internal tests. This is for kids that are poor. This is for kids that are rich. Like Florida's kids do not grow on test measures, and the reason for that is we've spent 25 years chasing test measures. It's the state is right now obsessed with two things: jamming as many kids back into schools as they possibly can for economic benefit for business as a whole, and free childcare, and restarting a model that's been a failure for 25 years, a complete failure. And if you go and watch the work session this morning, you'll see a couple of instances of blackmail at work. They're willing to certainly blackmail your kids and this community to get that fraud restarted. And I think that is part of the background of this whole thing that we're dealing with. There's no reason why the state couldn't simply provide the kind of supports they're providing with a gun to our head for schools that need extra support, that serve kids in communities that need extra support. They could just provide that. They could work with us. Instead, the entire thing is built around gangsterism. And the fact that we really haven't fought back against that for a generation is why we're in this place. Like we are forever. Multiple people this morning talked about how the state government would take away money and threaten us if we took a vote they didn't like. That's not a partner. That's not somebody who cares about your kids. That's somebody who cares about power and money. And I think we need to be very clear-eyed about that. So with that in mind, speaking of being clear-eyed, so the committee, can I ask a question? I mean, are school board members prevented from attending it? Like, is it? I mean, is it a Zoom meeting or? Right.
Yes,
so,
it is currently a Zoom meeting. The reopening task force was put together by staff. And from what I understand, each board member was asked if they would like to appoint someone to the committee. So you're welcome to appoint anyone you would like.
Does that include oneself?
I'd have to defer to Mr. Bridges or Mr. Hill. I'm not in charge of the meeting.
The ultimate question is it a public meeting? If it is a public meeting, then members of the board can certainly attend as members of the public. It's not noticed as a school board meeting where action will be taken.
Correct.
But the question is it a public meeting? I don't know the answer to that question.
I mean, it's a meeting of incredible public importance and
Absolutely.
and interest. So, I mean,
if it's a public meeting, we'll need to notice it, and then anybody who wishes to attend can attend, including school board members.
So if I could just try to answer this question for Mr. Townsend and obviously the public. When you have working committees, they're very organic committees and teams that work together to try to analyze situation. In this case, we're analyzing all the challenges, the factors, and the barriers, along with all the possibilities that go along with reopening school. And so superintendent tasked me with putting together the task force. And so we've been in the process of doing that, identifying key personnel, key community members, trying to make sure we have a variety of participants that will bring numerous perspectives and views throughout our district and our county and our communities to the table. So Getting quite a lot of feedback here. Can y'all hear me okay?
Here,
Okay,
let me mute.
thank you. Thank you very much. So we had some discussion. If we have to make it public and we do public notice and those things, then obviously we're trying to work quickly, efficiently, effectively. We embrace transparency, and we certainly understand the importance of transparency. So one of the things that we determined early on is that we will give the public updates, and we have Rachel and her team working closely with us to make sure that we share information, get information out to the community, and we have a nice broad spectrum of participants from throughout our community. In addition to that, each meeting, the first meeting on the agenda was to ask the members to give us input on additional members, those folks that would bring some additional insight and vantage point to the table for us. So I think if we're going to move quickly and efficiently, we've got a tremendous amount of work to do. The governor his office has released information that we'll be discussing tomorrow morning. And in addition to that, we'll be looking at all the various components of that, and then also reviewing all the information that we went over yesterday. So I think if we're going to move quickly, efficiently, and effectively, keep the public abreast of what's going on, we can do that and maintain that transparency, communicate extremely well, but also utilize the task force to get the information we need to make the best decisions we can in order to be ready to open schools for the 2021 school year.
All right. So let me back up then. What will this, is this task? Let me ask this. What is the elected school board's role in the decision to open schools in your understanding? And I'm just trying to establish what the positions are. Like I just need to know in my head. I'm not making a value judge.
Okay. If I understand your question correctly, your question is, what is your role and the school board's role in making the decision about how we go about opening schools? Is that
right?
Is that
right.
accurate?
From your point of view.
Okay. From my point of view, you will obviously provide governance over the policies and any of the financial decisions that have to be made. You'll be voting on that. In terms of how that is directed and how the process is directed, the actual creation of the plan and the implementation of the plan will be directed by the superintendent. You will be made aware of all the components and pieces of it. I'm sure at some point we'll bring those updates to you. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions, make suggestions like you do in work sessions and board meetings. And so ultimately, my perspective is you'll have oversight over those, I'm going to say, over your areas of responsibility in terms of the actual work of building the plan, vetting the plan, implementing the plan. The task force is going to utilize a variety of insights, expertise, and practices from all types of individuals throughout our community.
Do you not consider the plan for going back? Say just for the sake of some simplicity, say there's going to be a document that lays out the plan going back.
Right.
Is that a policy, or is that something you think we're going to vote on or not vote on? And John, I understand that this is hard to answer.
Yeah.
This is helpful.
So
I'm just trying to clarify.
So here's the thing, and I'm just going to speak. I'm just going to speak very as clearly as possible. From my perspective, is you've entrusted the superintendent and her team to do everything in our power to do as much research and engage as many folks as possible, our community members, community experts, both public and private sector, all weighing in to pull that information together to build the plan. So from my perspective, that is the work of the superintendent and her team in terms of building the plan. It's been my experience, and while I'm not an expert by any means of the imagination at this point, it's been my experience that when we bring these type of plans to you, whether it be progress on a budget that we've, worked on and revised, or it's the SBRT team, you've had the opportunity to ask questions about it, to weigh in on it, and to give feedback on it. I don't recall if the SBRT team was an item that you voted on, but I know that you vote on some of the purse strings that help pay for it. So in regards to the budget, in terms of policy, we have to stay true to the policy to make sure the plans and the processes that we utilize line up and follow our school board policy. So I don't know if that's as clear as you'd like it, but
it's all right, John. I don't think anybody else knows it either. So
it's kind of I know it's fluid, and it takes very clear communication and understanding our roles. I believe is very important in this process. So we certainly respect the role of our school board, but we also know that we have to move very quickly and efficiently. We've got a lot of work to do. Very complex situations, lots of detail-oriented items. Once you start thinking about one little piece of the pie, you end up determining that it's touching many other factors, whether it be transportation, whether it be mental health, whether it be other pieces of putting everything together, all the pieces together that it takes to run a school and to effectively teach students and make sure that they're safe, and that their first and foremost is always going to be their safety and well-being, but also creating a viable education process that gets at what we're here for, which is to educate them and do an outstanding job in that process. So,
but first and foremost, my role is to represent the people who elected us and who pay us. Because if I don't, they'll be done with me and put someone else in. And when they ask me what's going on this committee, what are you talking about? I'm not able to tell them. Do you see how that presents a problem?
Well, yeah, I do. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let me finish one suggestion. I mean, if I could view the deliberations, that would be a good first step. I mean, you don't necessarily have to allow public comment. You don't have to necessarily make everything a meeting of the school board. But I think the public is very interested in this. I mean, obviously, it's health and the well-being of their kids. Absolutely.
To see the deliberations and the discussions and the debates over whether to wear masks or not, or whatever.
That's probably one of the most
right. And
key concerns of the public.
And when someone says, "Hey, school board member, what do you think about this?" and I say, "Well, it doesn't really matter what I think, because an unelected committee is deciding that for you."
Okay.
So they're probably going to ask me, "Well, then why do I need you?" And I mean, I think that's a thing that has to be understood.
Well, I think we do understand that. I think sometimes it just gets lost in maybe perspective. But let me say this: we understand the importance of we're going to record the meetings. Now, I inadvertently messed up on the technology side in the first meeting, so we do have the notes from that. But we have every intention of being very transparent with the public. We understand the importance, and we understand the angst and the emotion of where we're headed, and parents and the community are very, very aware, interested, and want to know how this is going to look. So we have every intention of making sure that we're transparent, and whatever we need to do to keep our board updated, effectively updated, so that you can answer to the public. We also answer to the public, even though we're not elected officials. We know that we are here to work for them and to make sure that we create an excellent learning environment and a school experience for the kids. And so we're committed to that. And whatever we need to do to make sure you're educated and up to date on it, we're committed to doing that. And we're committed to making sure the public is aware of it as well.
Thank you. That was a helpful exchange, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, and thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ms. Fortney?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hill. Just in general, I just wanted to ask about the task force because I was kind of in the dark as well. And quite honestly, I would think out of a board representative being there, nothing against you, Ms. Cunningham, but I would have hoped, since I was the one that asked about it at the board meeting, that maybe somebody would have reached out to me, considering I am a real classroom teacher, and like to see solutions come from the bottom up, like from our at-risk employees, our custodial staff, our food service. They're the ones that are bombarding me with the questions. I've also heard that, again, on the task force, that some of the suggestions to sit on that task force have been denied. Is that true, Mr. Hill?
We're not denying. What we're trying to do is incorporate as many perspectives as possible, and we're trying to get a working committee that can remain the working, a manageable size for a working committee, while incorporating as many recommendations as possible. We are not finished with that process, and we are still willing to have dialogue, but we are being very thoughtful of trying to pull as many voices to the table as possible. So no, there's not been a flat denial. We've selected some, and then we will circle back to have those conversations as we continue to add members to the team.
That was my only question about the task force.
Yeah, I've said these are the ones we'd like to utilize. Thank you for submitting recommendations, and we'll get back to you on the other.
Again, I just want to reiterate that I wish I'd have been included, and I find solutions from the bottom up helpful sometimes.
We do too. Thank you. It's very important. I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. And let me say this, I have received several inquiries and suggestions from teachers, nutrition staff, and I've kept all those in a folder, and as well, I have forwarded them to the team so that as they start to group questions and information items, they can see what others, have submitted. So please feel free to do that as well. I know that I've submitted mine to Superintendent Byrd and Mr. Hill, and I would encourage anybody to do that, as well as go ahead and appoint somebody that you feel maybe would represent that sector of our employees. I think that would be welcomed.
Yes, Ms. Cunningham, I agree, and I have my person already lined up. They have agreed, and I didn't mean any ill will towards you at all. I just, like I said, and so I'm going to send everything to Superintendent Byrd. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great. And make sure you copy Mr. Hill, because that's the task force. He's running the task force on her behalf. So make sure he gets it as well, please. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Miller. And Mr. Hill, would you turn yours off? Because now I'm getting feedback.
Yes, ma'am.
I might need Mr. Hill.
Okay.
I just want to talk about that communication piece. And that's kind of, we see that over and over again, and we're going to figure it out, I know. But I knew about the committee when one of the committee members emailed me and said they got attached to a committee. So, I know that I don't need to be in the middle of everything, but we have got to work on kind of that flow back and forth. And the board needs to have some kind of discussion on some of this before things are finally decided. I mean, we are the elected board. So if there's something that's, if there's a proposal made, that would be a great idea. Here are 3 proposals from the committee. But right now, I'm not even sure how the committee is supposed to act, and I can't explain that to the public. All they know is Bay News 9 said we were open in 2 days a week, and they believe that to be true. And so we've got to message that better and work on how we communicate to your elected board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Point well taken. I agree with you. We have to continue to work on our communication tool. I'll be honest with you, it's been insane down at the district office with graduations and working on summer programs and working on packets for students and looking at reopening of schools. There's just been a lot going on. I can tell you I was in attendance through the Teams meeting for the first task force, which was last Wednesday morning. And I mean, nothing was decided. Pretty much it was just, here's some of the items that are coming forward. It's just kind of beginning to be formulated because we've never been down this path before. But I too heard about us opening up through the Bay News 9, and I don't know where that came from. If perhaps it was a different county that might have started with a P and they got us mixed up. I really don't know because nothing came out of that task force meeting to indicate anything to that degree. So yes, I agree. We need to get better at that. And as we move forward, because, we don't even have a roadmap for any of this. We're kind of making it up as we go. So please be sure, to appoint whomever you would like, once again, to be on the task force. I think the only reason I was picked, not to slight any other board member, but simply to have the board chair on the committee. So it could have really been any of you sitting in this position would have been asked, would you please serve? So I think that's kind of how that was done. So thank you for your comments. Next, we have Ms. Reynolds.
Is this our general comments too? Because I have comments on those, but do you want it all together?
This is just the one that regarding this issue, okay. The task force.
I just want to say, thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for serving on behalf of the board. We elected you to be our chair, and I think that this is the prime example of reasons that we have a chair to be able to represent the board as a whole when we have task force and things like this. So thank you for representing us. I know that you're hearing what we're saying in these meetings and what we're passionate about as we move forward. So I appreciate you taking those thoughts forward. And additionally, Mr. Hill, I know you contacted us this week about additional members that we would like to see in appointing someone. I was thrilled to see when you sent out the second email that there have been more teachers that have accepted their appointments from PEA and being asked to join. And a couple other, I know we now have athletics represented and the arts represented, because those are some things that are obviously going to have to change during as we move forward in their current form. So thank you for sending out the second list. I think if we have more than one board member in the room, that obviously it has to become a much larger meeting. I know I sit next to Ms. Fortney a lot of times at our FSBA meetings for the general meetings where there's 250 of us in a room, and trying to get anything accomplished becomes very difficult. So I do agree that keeping the committee smaller is much more feasible to working, particularly in this short turnaround. We have less than 2 months till when we're supposed to open schools, according to our current calendar. So obviously the turnaround is crucial. So thank you, Lori, for being able to represent us. I think it would be very helpful if maybe when we meet as regularly scheduled, if in your comments you could maybe give us a little bit of an update from your perspective as the board representative on the committee. And I know that Mr. Hill and Mrs. Bird will continue to send us updates throughout as well.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Fields?
If I remember correctly, and maybe it's kind of fuzzy, but I believe Ms. Bird talked about this reopening task force committee of structure and formation at the last work session, I believe. And I believe she said that every board member would be given an opportunity to have at least one person that they could recommend to serve on the reopening task force. I believe that. And then this was a part of my report, but I'll say it now. I want to thank Mr. Wilson for doing such an amazing prayer today. He talked about the superintendent having wisdom, and Miss Bird has a lot of wisdom and understanding. And I don't think that Miss Bird would have any plan as significant as this and not bring it back to the board for us to have ownership and to have suggested input. I don't think that she would do that because I think she understands the seriousness of it and the urgency of it. And I want to thank Mr. Hill for being in the hot seat today, Mr. Hill. You did a good job. But at the end of the day, the opening of the school is that responsibility rests on the superintendent of schools. Always communicating with us and always keeping us in the loop. But at the end of the day, we have to trust her, as Mr. Wilson said in his prayer, to use her wisdom and understanding to get us where we need to be with the input of the community, which would be the task force members, that we will all have a part in at least selecting one person to serve on that group.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Mr. Townsend?
Couple of things. I don't think this was too much of a hot seat, was it, John? I mean, we're just talking. I think I'd like the attorney to weigh in for a second. I mean, I don't know that it's clear that opening and closing schools is the responsibility of the superintendent. What does statute say? I mean, how do you interpret?
Statute doesn't.
Right. I think that, and I think that's a key point. I mean, I think people have created roles and responsibilities that are customs. They're not in law. They're just how this stuff has been done.
The statute does not talk about the authority to open schools, keep schools closed. Nobody ever contemplated such a thing happening. So the legislature never legislated.
Right.
Generally speaking, when you read the duties and responsibilities of school board members or school boards, the duties and responsibilities of superintendents, in almost every instance, the superintendent recommends, the board votes. So I would anticipate at some point that the superintendent would bring the board a plan, and those items that require votes would be presented to you for that purpose, that you would have the opportunity for input.
Right.
But yeah, typically that's how it works. The superintendent is executive, but she should at some point bring you recommendations.
Right, and in theory, the elected board could take or not take those recommendations, and then there's kind of a what next, you know. So my larger point here is that it behooves everybody for us to get on the same page on how this is going to work. And one of the ways to get on the same page, particularly when you have a more active board than you have in the past, is to be fairly inclusive of us. And I mean, I've thought a lot about this, done a lot of research on it. I think people expect that from me because they elected me. And you know, the deliberations, being able to see the full deliberations of the committee would be helpful. I think these questions of authority are completely unclear. I think ideally we're all going to get on the same page and work it out by consensus. I don't really think there's any other option because the state's going to throw its point of view in, and the governor so the more it's, what I don't want to happen is for a plan that I had no real meaningful input on placed in front of me with 10 minutes to go vote on this, or else nobody goes to school. And before you say that wouldn't happen, we get confronted with those kind of votes all the time. It's happened today. And I understand, I think what's his other point about this is not just some normal working committee. This is an extraordinary, like once in 100 years sort of thing. And I don't think we as a board can be expected to, or in good faith, just kind of abdicate what we're doing. And so that's the message I'm trying to convey. So I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. And your points are well taken. I would simply offer a couple of things. Number one is, I believe the meetings are going to be recorded. So I understand, Mr. Hill, there was a bump in the technology side last Wednesday.
That's correct.
Going
That was
forward,
a Mr. Hill bump. Yeah.
whatever. No blame. We're all making mistakes through this time. And I would anticipate this being exactly the way you just summed it up. The task force is going to convene. We're going to talk about the issues, things like sanitizer, what classroom, where's lunches, how are lunches done, masks. You started talking about some of those, and that's going to continue. And I think once there is some, and you use the word eloquently, the consensus of the group that this sounds like it might be the way, I would anticipate, which is why I'm on there, that we would bring this back to this board. We are ultimately responsible for making the final decision and voting. Mr. Hill, if you can mute, thank you. To be able to move forward. And then that way, everybody has the opportunity to review it, look at it, put input, because each one of us has a different perspective, as well as all those on the task force. So I don't see this as we're going to work for 6 or 8 weeks and then boom, everybody's going to get something, because I'm not going to allow that to happen. I feel that we have to be timely, and maybe we'll give periodic updates, maybe every couple of weeks, whatever. Haven't talked to superintendent about it yet. Need to kind of get through graduations and have a few of the meetings and figure out kind of where we are, and then definitely update the board periodically. And then, as always, the superintendent and staff brings that plan recommendation to us. No, not, August 3rd with school starting on August 10th. I get it if that's when we reopen, but enough in advance that, from your knowledge and your perspective, as Ms. Fortney indicated, she might be able to look at it with somebody and come back and say, this isn't going to work and here's why. So I would anticipate this being a very fluid process. And there's just some people that are on the committee and others that are watching in the wings, but I could never come to you on August 3rd as your board chair and go, here, guys, let's go ahead and approve this. This is what we've been working on for 8, 9, 10 weeks. So I don't feel that would happen. I'm working hard with the task force. I'm an integral part of it. And I want you to know, if you have comments, please send them directly, or concerns, to Ms. Bird and Mr. Hill. That's what I've been doing when folks have addressed me, since I sit on the task force. And please be vocal if you've got concerns or people, but I don't think there's anything trying to be hidden. I just think they're trying to create a manageable group of people that can go in there, bring up issues, talk about them, and try to get some things resolved, with the eventuality, of course, presenting it to us for consensus or approval. I don't really know what that process is, but we couldn't possibly go forward without bringing it to our. So that's kind of my take on it. And Mr. Hill, am I correct in my assumption?
Yes, ma'am. We want to be very clear about that. We are committed to communicating. Ms. Townley, who is our co-chair, we've talked extensively, and we've also engaged Ms. Pleasant in that conversation about the best ways to communicate information in a timely and effective way. So I heard the board loud and clear on that piece, the communication piece. And we are committed to that. We're putting plans together to give either weekly or bi-weekly as much information as possible in a timely manner, and give that pertinent and very important information, not only to our board, but to our public. And we embrace feedback. We embrace ideas, concerns, questions, and we believe that and keep in mind, this is organic, so it's ongoing. We just started it. This is tomorrow will be our second meeting, and so we're still adding members. And we've also had talks about how to utilize other groups to get information. So this is a organic organization that we're going to take in the information and make those decisions, determinations, and build a plan to move forward. And then we'll give updates as we go through the process.
I mean, if
Mr. Hill.
If there's a quick turnaround on the tape of the meetings, that would help a lot. You know, if it's like a day or two. For me, what I can just tell you is speaking as one board member, the ability to view the deliberations and be able to think about them and react to them intelligently is what I care the most about.
Sure.
And if we can do that in a timely way, I'll be okay.
Definitely. We heard you loud and clear. Absolutely. It makes sense for everybody. Ms. Miller?
Just quickly, I agree that with Mr. Hill, what he was saying, I just want to make this very clear. I would like my communication before 2 minutes before it's posted to social media. In the past, I'll get a quick email. We're going to put this up in 30 seconds. That's not preparing me for what the public will find out, because I might not even get to my email in time. These 7 board members should have the information before it goes to the public, so we are prepared to respond to our constituents, because yes, the community is more engaged than they've ever before, and my phone will go off with texts and screenshots of things that I have no idea. And I just think we have got to close that gap in communication with our board. And I'm not saying pick up the phone and call 7 people, but before it goes to PR, to go out to social media or to the ledger, we should have time to review whatever those decisions look like, whether it's, I understand there's times of emergency, but we are just not getting information. I shouldn't hear it from Facebook. So I would like to work on that for this idea and others. But thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And I totally understand. Hopefully we can improve upon that. And as we go along with the suggestions that are given in the meetings, because as to date, nothing's been decided on any of this. It's just been discussion items being brought forward. But I think, as Mr. Townsend has suggested, if you could view the discussion and those task force meetings, it may help you, as he indicated, to kind of let the information seep, and then you think about it, you talk to other people in the community, and you may have some great suggestions to come back with. So, and I know everybody is welcoming that, because as each of you know, we have not been down the road before. There is no roadmap to reopening schools. And I anticipate from the emails and the information I get from around the country, everybody's doing it a little bit different based on their school district, their demographics, their way of life, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think anybody's going to be doing exactly the same thing. Everybody's pretty much building it from the ground up. So we will try to do that as best as we can, but please feel free to give input and to send it on to staff so that your ideas can be incorporated when we meet on Wednesdays. Okay, any further discussion on this item? Okay, then next, let's go ahead and go back to our board member reports. And Ms. Reynolds?
Hello, I may have to jump off in a few minutes just because I have to get to the other side of the county for Tin Rock's graduation. But my board report's very short this week. Just thank you for everyone who's been involved in graduations. They have been so well received by parents, students, community members. It's encouraging just to see kids that come across the field sobbing because they're so excited they're getting to have a ceremony when most of their peers across the country are not. So it's been an incredible experience to witness that. I know some of you have not been able to attend because of personal things. So thank you for allowing me to fill in for you, because I really do love graduations more than probably anyone else in the world. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to attend a lot of them. So thank you so much. And I will leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Next, we have Ms. Fields.
I just wanted to reiterate what Ms. Reynolds just said about the opportunity to participate in graduations this year, and the excitement that is obvious to the stadium and to the parents and to the families. And I want to thank all of the people that's been working real hard behind the scene, making sure that this came to pass. And so I look forward to going to one on Saturday. I think it's Mulberry that I'm going to be attending. So hats off to everybody who's been involved with that. And I wanted to also thank Bishop Mincy. Bishop Mincy has not missed one graduation. He's been to every graduation. Lord bless him, is all I can say. And he has been steadfast with that. And I think he plans to do that until we finish with the last one later on in the month. And I wanted to say that when I was watching the video a few minutes ago, it really touched my heart. And the reason why, there are many reasons, but I grew up in a very small rural town in Macomb, Mississippi, and dealt with racism most of my life. And I remember when I was running for re-election the last time, and my kids and I were out campaigning, and how someone just came by in a truck and called us the N-word and did some things that really wasn't nice. And that just reminded me that racism is alive and well, and we have to work to end that. And so the video was very touching today for me. And Mr. Wilson's prayer was very touching today. And when I saw Ms. Bird standing, talking about no tolerance for prejudice and no tolerance for racism, and Mr. Hill coming behind her, and then the kids, it just really made me proud to be a part of the Polk County Public Schools. And so I would say to everybody that was involved in that video, good job, well done. We have a lot of work to do. The work is going to be years ahead of us, our grandchildren and our grandchildren's children, but we can do it. And this is just one of many ways that we can accomplish that. So Mr. Hill, great job on the video. And that ends my report, Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Next, we have Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Fields, for those comments. I appreciate them very much. I have a prepared statement I'd like to read. It shouldn't take more than half an hour. I'm just kidding. I know everybody needs to get to graduation, so I'm going to forego my comments this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I was getting a little worried there. Ms. Miller?
Look at Lynn being funny.
I know, I love it.
Yeah,
Ms.
I think
Miller?
I'm going to, due to time, I'm just going to keep mine short. Everybody knows that, these graduations have been great for the kids. We have the center schools are holding out till September because they cannot graduate outside. So I don't want people to forget that. 3 of us have center schools in our districts, and that will be moved till September, where they can have a graduation inside. So that's very important. I do want, speaking of inside and COVID-19, we've gone up 2,800 cases in one day. And so I'm not sure why we're going to meet on June 30th in the same building. And if we're going to have people come, how we're going to work that. If it continues to rise, I want us to be cautious that COVID-19 has not gone away. I had a friend who worked for a local attorney who has 4 children in our school system that passed away from COVID-19 here in Lakeland at Lakeland Regional. It is very real. And so I think we need to be cautious of that. And we may need to relook at locations for June 30th if we continue to watch the rise in these cases. But that's really all I had for my report. So I think Madam Chairwoman, you're going to address that anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Okay, and I have just a couple things. I do want to say congratulations to the class of 2020. We are so very proud of each of you and the perseverance and dedication that you have shown through this incredibly crazy time in our country's history. I also want to say kudos to the parents for your support of each of your students. Each of us that are parents and grandparents know the time and effort and energy that it takes to support our students' education. So we're very proud of the parents, the grandparents, aunts and uncles, blended families, whatever it took to be able to watch your child walk across the stage. And additionally, I want to give out a special shout out and thanks to our public relations staff. To see those folks at each one of these graduations, setting up cameras, running when it rains, running back out and setting up as soon as the sun shows through the clouds. At the one on Saturday night, we got totally drenched. We waited about an hour, hour and a half, and then went back out there, and all those kids came back out and were just as happy as they could be to walk across the platform, if you will, and receive their diploma in the rain. So it's been while it's been a crazy time for all of us, it's been such a blessing to have our folks out there, from teachers, support staff, to our PR folks, our administration, our district staff with superintendent and Mr. Hill. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's been an incredible journey for all of us. And I just want to say thank you, because it's one thing to be in the RP Funding Center where it's air conditioned and, you know, everybody knows their orderliness, but out in the middle of the field, it's been quite the experience. And our folks have just basically done an incredible job. And I just want to say thank you. Additionally, I want to remind everybody about the special school board meeting that we are having on Tuesday, the June 30th at 5 p.m. It will be held at the Jim Miles Center in Lakeland. The purpose of the meeting is to hear from the public regarding our superintendent, Jackie Bird, and our upcoming superintendent search. I have received many calls, many letters, requesting this public hearing. So I came before you at the last work session, and we're very excited to do this. We welcome comments from the public. Each person that is in attendance will have 3 minutes to address the board, and this meeting will be conducted as of now in person with social distancing protocols. All that has been worked out so that all our board members can attend. The meeting will be live streamed as well. So if something happens and we have to change that moving forward, we certainly can. But as of now, I think we are set to have it. And they've got, because the Jim Miles Center is so large, I think we are going to be in one room. And they've already mapped it out and figured it out. I don't have all the details for you, but I know our staff has done that, because as I've talked to the folks during the graduations, I've gotten bits and pieces of it. We're going to be in one room, and it's just going to be the 7 of us. And then other folks are going to be in other rooms and then brought in as they want to address the board and that sort of thing. So I do feel like it's going to be using the appropriate social distancing protocols, but it's something that the community has asked us to do specifically in person. And I feel like we can do that. I think if we take the precautions that I understand we will be doing, that we'll be able to sit in person and hear folks address each of us as they choose. So I hope that answered your questions. If something happens and we absolutely can't do this, we'll be in touch. But as of now, that's the plan. And also, we will be adding the item that we took off of the board report today. If that information from Lake Wales on the quitclaim deed for the 1919 school building in Lake Wales, if that is ready to come before us with the suggestions that were made today, that I would anticipate going ahead and taking care of that item prior to opening up for public comments. Is everybody on the board in agreement with us doing that on that day? That's what I thought I heard. Okay. All right. And that concludes my report. Ms. Fortney?
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. And I do want to thank people that have stepped in for me, missing graduation, especially Auburndale High School, because I taught those kids at Stanball, but I just cannot take a chance. My sister is quarantined with me. She's in her mid-70s, and I appreciate y'all stepping in. I just can't take a chance. I guess I did not ask a question earlier well enough to the chair. Apparently it was on the consent agenda, the student progress plan. I did not mean to vote for that. I feel like it's inequitable, and I did not realize it was on the consent agenda. I don't know when that changed, but it's harder for me to follow that. And also on the Title II, number 16, I looked at that email. We got that during the work session. I tried to ask about it. You know, I'm under the impression that those Title II funds could be used for AEDs and stop the bleed kits. And I saw none of that as far as supplies, no equipment or anything. And I would like some follow up on that. But I did want to give a shout out to Auburndale High School's 2020 because those kids at Stanball saved my life. They're awesome. Speaking of saving my life, the Supreme Court ruled, I think yesterday, which is a step in the right direction for equality for all. Superintendent Byrd's message and Deputy Superintendent Hill's video and the statements made, I want us to make sure we follow through with that because public education is the solution to me. That's why I was a public education teacher. So thank you to all of our frontline workers. And as usual, I believe pre-K, public schools through 12th grade, just do it better. Thank you. Oh, wait, one more. I would like also discussion, Ms. Porteous, if you could phone me about what we were talking about, but I can't seem to get my messaging to work to ask you a question, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. And once again, let me talk about the graduations real quick. For those that can attend and for those that cannot attend, there is no requirement. This is something that we do if we choose. Once again, we're under unprecedented times. And if folks do not feel that they are comfortable going, I feel that is absolutely in your own purview. We each have a different journey that we're on during COVID-19, and each of those should be respected. So I'm glad you said something, Ms. Fortney, but really not needed because we understand everybody's on a different journey during this time. Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Miller.
I just want to ask, because I haven't been through this search process before, and you said you've received a lot of emails about people wanting us to meet in person to talk about the superintendent, her retirement. I've gotten a couple of emails misunderstanding there's some kind of resignation. So I've had to clarify that in the community. Yes. But I know that she's, with the date set out so far to retire, I want people to be able to celebrate her, at other times. And also with this kind of really early on in the picking of a firm, are there going to be other opportunities for this? Like, are we going to provide additional opportunities for people to share their input, or is it just this one time?
That's a great question. And I've received that one as well. So the way I am envisioning it, but certainly it's going to come from all of you as well. But here's my thought. This is the first opportunity for people to come and speak. Then once we pick a firm, assuming we pick a firm in the next several weeks, once that is done and we know what the financial impact is, then we have to figure out how we're going to raise those funds. Thirdly, after we raise the funds and we're able to move forward with a search firm, the next step would be to outline what are the characteristics and things that we want to see in that superintendent. And they will be working with us, they normally do, to define traits and different things that we want to see in the leadership of the Polk County School District. Once we've done that and that information is compiled and we start the quote official search nationwide, then they will bring to us candidates based on what we tell them. Give me your top 12, give me your top 6, give me your top, whatever we decide as a board. Those candidates' resumes are then sent to us. Once we get that, then we can decide who we want to interview and who we want to bring out to the public. Last time we had community meetings in Bartow, in Lakeland, in Winter Haven, and in Haines City to try to give people the opportunity to see, I think it was the top 3, if my recollection is correct, top 3 or 4. And that way the public had the opportunity to meet them, shake their hand, ask them any questions, and then that sort of thing. So there will be multiple opportunities for people. And then we also ask that each of the top, let's say 3, I'm just choosing a number for the sake of discussion. Let's say the top 3 we really like, then we ask them to come down, bring their spouse with them, because really, if you think about it, it's a total package that we're looking for. And we get to meet the spouse. We do community tours. We ask community members to meet at different places, and a board member might take them from lunch over to a school, and then from school to dinner, and then someone else from dinner to the forum, depending on where that forum is. So there's ample opportunities at each of these events for the community to come in and meet the folks and help us with their input as to who they think would be the best leader going forward. So I that's kind of my recollection. We may do it a little bit differently. I'm open for suggestions, but the key is to start kicking it off and trying to pick a firm and trying to identify those traits, and then getting the advertisement out there so that we can start getting some information in. And then we can choose however you, as a board, however we want to do it. It's really up to us. They may suggest stuff and they give us several options, and it'll be up to us to speak. But I'll be honest with you, I think the community input piece for me personally was extremely important in these last searches that we've done.
And I've attended the last ones, and I appreciate this offering, especially because it's very early on. But you also mentioned they wanted to talk to us about our superintendent. I'm sure we'll have some kind of I'm sure there'll be some celebrations. Is that going to be later in the planning of this?
Yes,
Because
yes, ma'am.
the misunderstanding
Yes.
between retirement and resignation is something I hope people understand before they come up and think that somebody's resigning, because
I
that's
know.
not happening.
I know.
And I just want to make sure people understand that the celebratory stuff will still continue. We have 8 months
Yeah.
to do that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had understanding of what this was going to be. But thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, as with others, when the time comes, there is going to be, we'll have to put that together, obviously with staff, but I would assume sometime after the first of the year, once the new person would be perhaps in place, we would pick a date and a time. And yes, it would be a celebration and a thank you. Absolutely. I can't imagine not doing that for Superintendent Byrd and her husband, Jason, for all the time and effort, because he's right alongside her in everything that she does countywide. He's everywhere supporting her. So yes, we would naturally do that. But I agree with you. A lot of people also thought that she resigned, and I was like, no, she is retiring. They have some plans to travel and do some other really cool stuff. So, it's a season in one's life, and each of us will embark upon that season. And it is a time to celebrate everything that she's done for us. So yes, ma'am, I would anticipate doing that with y'all's blessing, but we'll be doing that more towards probably the first part of 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, board members? Okay, if not, the next item is for public comments on our agenda. And this is for any comments addressing items that are not on the agenda. So it can be pretty much any topic that the public wishes to speak about. Mrs. Worthington, is there anyone that has submitted comments regarding items that were not on our agenda today?
Yes, ma'am. We have about a dozen comments today.
Wonderful. Okay, if you would be so kind and read their name, address, and comments into the record, and you may begin.
Thank you. Our first comment comes from Tawny Simon. Hello, I emailed public comments May 11th, 2020 for insight on issues I was having in getting a straight answer via phone regarding the PEF scholarships. The email was forwarded, and in turn, I received an email back. I have forwarded the response to my initial email and would like it to be read into the record, showing the explanation given to an inquiry. Please read through her responses within my email as well. Thank you. Hello, Ms. Simon. I was forwarded your message from yesterday and have provided you with information below in red. I am sorry you feel like you got the runaround, but I can assure you scholarship work has continued on and they are being awarded. What you heard was in fact correct, but I think taken out of proper context. So I have tried to clarify all for you below. If questions remain, please feel free to email me back, or you can call our line and use my personal extension. I would be glad to speak to you if you need more information. Please release updated information regarding the Polk Education Foundation 2019-2020 scholarships for seniors. Response. Award lists are being sent to counselors by this Friday, and award letters are going to students who are recipients next week. We are actually doing both earlier than usual because students miss the opportunity for senior award ceremonies, and we know a few might be waiting to hear from us to decide what college they will attend. Question. The seniors in Polk County have been robbed of so many things. Please don't let this be another. I personally have called PEF multiple times only to get the runaround when the call is answered. Response. Staff has been filling in for someone who is working from home, and if they did not answer your call, they had instructions to check her voicemail daily to get messages to her to return calls if they could not answer the question. Question. From an employee stating random excuses like, the lady who usually handles it is on quarantine, she has kids at home, she's trying to homeschool them, there's hiccups with some of the scholarships. Response. There are not random excuses, they are all the truth. The school district allowed employees to work from home if they had virus-related issues, and one PEF staff member who plays a major role in scholarships did and worked from home. Comment. Some organizations haven't completed the selection process. Response. Again, this is totally true and something we deal with every year. We have individual donors and members of selection committees that have to report to us after reviewing the applications they have been sent, and we unfortunately can't make them do it any quicker, even when we follow up multiple times. If there had been an award ceremony date they had to meet, we sometimes hear from them that same day, which makes our work much harder. But without ceremonies, we did give them longer to work as it removed the time crunch we had to put on our donors and the volunteers working to help us. Comment, it will be end of May. Response, that is when ceremonies would have been complete, and that was our original plan, but we are getting lists and letters out now sooner. It will be June. Response, award letters always go out the first week of June, but as I said, we are getting them out earlier so students do not have to wait. Comment, students who win something will be notified via email, etc. Response, recipients are always notified by mail. We will have about 400 recipients that we will send award packages to with all they need to complete to request their funds. When we send lists to the schools this week, counselors may reach out to their recipients. I do not know what they have planned, but we have told them the lists are coming in case they get questions from students or parents. Comment, this is all excuses. Response, everything you were told seems to be correct. I'm sorry you felt like the information you received was not. Comment, all of this is usually completed prior to what should be awards night, and many things have gone forward during the COVID crisis. I don't think this should be that far behind. Response, we are not actually behind. It may seem that because we were not done for individual award ceremony dates, but with those removed, we then worked towards our next deadline, which was getting lists to schools and award letters out. The last senior award ceremony was to be in the middle of May, and then we'd normally get award lists to counselors after that and award letters out in June. We will have both done earlier than usual. Just nothing has been announced to individual students due to no ceremonies being held. We very much regret, due to the virus, we were not able to publicly announce the awards and students being recognized in front of their parents and peers. One school we know of did decide to have a virtual ceremony, and we are getting them an award script to use to announce the scholarships done by the PEF. Our donors were also saddened that they could not present their awards in person at ceremony, as many of them do. Comment, the seniors and their families deserve a straight answer. All information should be posted and continue to be updated on the school board website as well as social media. Thank you. Response, both will be done. Linked to an award list showcasing scholarship recipients. And that was from Ms. Simon. Our next comment is from Holly Westcott. Hey there. I'm a parent who received the survey about kids returning to school, and I'm confused. I feel as though the questions were phrased around the idea that any of the measures listed were positive or not far enough. I personally do not want my kids subjected to temperature checks or masks. However, I feel that voting not comfortable made it seem as though I thought that wasn't safe enough. That is not what I think. I firmly believe that kids will be exposed to germs and the virus no matter what measures are taken, and that's just the risk we take, as we do every year with the flu. If a child has medical issues that prevent them from recovering from such an illness, they should have to access distance learning. Regular kids should go back to school as normal. Please don't cater to the irrational parents. Let them keep their kids home. My kids miss school, they miss life and friends and teachers. I will not force them to wear a mask. There's scientific evidence that it's not healthy for prolonged periods of time. In addition to that, they won't wear it properly. From touching it all day to pulling it down, it won't even serve the purpose of safety. I hope you will offer a revised survey that accurately portrays how some parents feel about this. Thank you. This is a letter received from Shauna Lastinger to the Distinguished Board of Polk County Schools. I would like to start by saying that it is an honor and privilege to work with Mrs. Jacqueline Bird. I worked in the superintendent's office from October 2012 to September 2013. During this time, I saw 3 superintendents come through the door and out the door for Polk County Schools: Dr. Nickel, Dr. Stewart, and Mrs. Leroy. It was trying times indeed. I respected each of those people, but not nearly as much as I respect Mrs. Bird. I worked with her from the start as she came from Duval County to Polk. She dove right in, visiting every school she could fit in the day, taking calls from parents and the public whenever possible. This was a new place to her, but she didn't make it seem that way. She has since taken the initiative to be our superintendent, and one that we truly need. She has more integrity, positive attitude, and respect for people than anyone I know. She has made many accomplishments, all of which you know. You are there at the helm, so you know the achievements she has led our district to. You oversee our district and hear from the public daily. Many times, you may only hear the negative responses from people because they are disgruntled that things are not the way they would like. It is a hard job that she and you have, trying to hear what the public wants, yet knowing that sometimes the honest answer may be hard to take. You must deliver it in the best manner possible. Honesty is all anyone should want to hear, though. The honest answer to Mrs. Bird's request to accept her retirement is clear to me. Please don't let her go. She is our leader that is here for all the students, all the staff, and the common good of our entire district. There are always times that disagreements will arise, but it is obvious that she has nothing but our welfare in mind. I hope you are able to look past whatever is causing you to accept the end of her tenure in Polk County and make it a fresh start with her. In today's trying times, she is steady and knows us. We are not so sure what is on the other side. I just wanted you to hear from me as a public citizen and Polk County School Board employee for the last 20 years. I am not ashamed or fearful to let you know how much her staying on the board with us would mean. Thank you for your time and being there for us when we need you. Sincerely. Our next comment comes from Christy McCullough. Dear Polk County School Board, Superintendent Bird, and senior staff. First, a great big thank you to our district IT staff. Rachel Goodman and Will Austin have gone above and beyond to make sure that those of us with no technical knowledge were able to deliver content. They even went on social media on Sunday morning and offered to help and answered every question. To me, they are the heroes, because without them, my students would have gotten no content. We have finished our spring experiment of distance learning. As an educator, we spent many hours learning new technology, contacting students, answering questions, and providing support. If you were a teacher of electives, you also had to research and deliver content. Distance learning cannot replace in-person learning, especially for hands-on electives. However, we did the best we knew how, and I personally have learned tools that I will use through the rest of my teaching career. My concern is the message you sent to our student population about distance learning. This began in a state of emergency, had to be quickly organized, negotiated with the state, and has changed since it was first shared. I believe every single person has done the best they knew how. We were advised from the beginning to use grace, which I believe most teachers were planning to do. However, by publicly stating early in the process that no student could receive a lower grade for fourth 9 weeks, you took away any incentive for our students to try. 11% of my students never engaged during distance learning, but the percentage not participating was over 30% by the end of the semester. I don't know the reason all didn't participate, but I know many that made a choice not to work due to the published policy. Once students knew the policy was in place, what incentive did they have to keep working? Unfortunately, the emergency is far from over. There is a real chance that distance learning will continue in the fall exclusively or in a hybrid setting. Next fall, this goes from something we threw together as best we could to business as normal. I assume we'll be responsible for delivering full content, and students will need to show mastery of content. When we return to school in the fall, the challenges and inequities will still be there. How will you design distance learning to make sure students are held accountable for learning the material? They will not have a third quarter grade to fall back on. Help us communicate a message of student accountability to all our stakeholders. Please recognize teachers ultimately did not have final say in their gradebook. District policy clearly stated that we were not allowed to put in certain grades, even if level of work and contact with students, parents, and administrators was documented. I realize again that this spring was an emerging process caused by something we have never experienced. But as you take the time to plan what the future will look like, please place the responsibility equally among the stakeholders, teachers, students, and parents, and return the control to the teachers. The primary reason many of us voted to ratify the new contract was the language that recognized our professionalism and returned control to us of our time and teaching methods. Please do not let this ongoing emergency take that control away. Our next comment is from Mark Lewis. Good afternoon. I am writing to express my concerns about the graduations that have been conducted during this pandemic. Over and over again, pictures on social media show how the mask requirement is blatantly being disregarded by students and attendees. This puts our entire community at risk, especially given the sharp increase in cases in Florida. How can parents trust you to take care of our children if schools reopen in August, when it is abundantly clear that the safety guidelines for the graduations are apparently only for PR and to provide a false sense of security? The confusion in the hiring process for superintendent is disturbing. Just because you received a couple of letters doesn't change the fact that Ms. Bird announced her retirement. She shouldn't get the opportunity to play political games and think about not retiring if the school board elections go her way. The process to replace Ms. Bird needs to proceed and needs to proceed as quickly as possible. I do not support efforts to retain Ms. Bird and know that many people agree. Why have reappointments not come before the board since the new fiscal year starts in 2 weeks? Why have we not been told the results of the survey regarding the return to school? I also have continued issues with the rude tone of posts on the district's social media pages. The responses from the district sound like they are being made by a child throwing a temper tantrum. Ms. Pleasant and her staff apparently need to be trained in etiquette and professionalism. Our next comment comes from Christy Richa. Good morning. I would like to voice my concern over the potential plan of meeting 2 days a week starting school in August. Our children and families in Polk County need continuity and quality moving forward. Since COVID largely only poses a threat to the elderly and those with pre-existing morbidities, our children in the school system are unaffected. However, if they are only able to come to school 2 days a week, they will be severely affected. My husband and I both have postgraduate degrees and are able to provide internet support, food, and safety to our 3 children, grades 7 and 9. However, the virtual school that we just completed for the fourth quarter felt like a huge failure in our home as they struggled to learn in this capacity, and we struggled to balance full-time work and teaching 3 middle schoolers. If that is the case in a loving home with resources, internet, food, and safety, think of the thousands of children in Polk County where there will simply be no education, as most parents are just not equipped to deal with a situation like this. Moving forward, I suggest we plan on returning to normalcy August 10th. If parents are not comfortable sending their children to school, then that is on them and a virtual platform can be provided. However, please do not subject the rest of the families to this nonsense. I am strongly requesting that our children are given a fair chance to an education and ultimately a future. Our next comment comes from Cosette Hubbard. I am a teacher. I have been with the district for 16 years. Before that, I worked as a paramedic for Polk County EMS. Over the years, I've had many leaders. A few have made positive impacts on myself and many others, and a few almost have led me to another career. One thing I can say about Mrs. Bird is that she has made a positive impact on myself and many others. She has led this district with a style and grace that rivals the likes of Michelle Obama and Grace Kelly. She makes herself available to talk to you when many have insulated themselves from everyone. She has tried to choose people in her staff that will have positive impacts. I would implore that all of the board members sit down and do your level best to talk her out of leaving. While I applaud some of you asking hard questions and holding people accountable, when an issue is addressed over and over, let it go and let this leader do her job. You are running her off, not the job, not the public, not the employees. You are the reason she is choosing to leave. Just stop. Let her do the job you hired and ask her to stay with an extended contract. You chose her and asked her to sign another contract and stay. So why are you running her off? And if I offend some of you, well, so sorry, but I have always told it like it is. I'm trying hard to be more tactful, but failing. So here it is. Stop being the reason she is leaving. If we lose her, I'm not sure we will find another who has the heart for the job. We may get another one like the last lady we had. Let Mrs. Bird do her job, the job you hired her to do. You better work hard to keep her, or just maybe we won't be keeping you come election time. And a note to Mrs. Bird, thank you. Thank you for being the kind of leader who truly cares about not only the students, but also the staff. You are given an impossible task and budget to work with, but you do your level best to make it happen, so thank you. Our final comment today comes from John Milo. Comes from Sandra Silva. Reopening schools. I do not feel comfortable at all sending my kids to school this fall semester. Will Polk County schools give an option for parents of students who do not feel comfortable sending their students to school to have the opportunity for them to do online distance learning for the entire fall semester? Thank you. And that concludes our comments.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Worthington, and thank you to all of you who have submitted comments for the board meeting today. I did see a request once again to have all of those comments emailed to each of the board members. So I would appreciate if we could do that in a timely manner like we did last time. So thank you for that. Well, at this point, the next order of business is adjournment. Board members, there being no further business, this meeting of the Polk County School Board is now adjourned.